Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
So what is so wrong with the dark? What is so wrong with being in a place of darkness inside of you, which everybody has, by the way? Every woman, every man, every child, everybody has a dark side. There was something to Star Wars, you know? There's a lot. I think one of the reasons why Star Wars is still a phenomenon, since Star Wars, I guess to me, the first movie, episode 4, came out in 77, I think it was, because I remember seeing it as a kid. It was huge. And because there isn't a light and a dark side. And you need to understand that that darkness inside of you is not a bad thing. It simply is. And that there'll be no way for you to know light unless you have dark. There's just not. And so I'm reflecting a lot right now. I'm reflecting of a lot of things that I'm going through, and I want to talk to you about a lot of this stuff, sister, but I don't know how to use words to describe it. It's feelings, right? It's feelings more than anything. And shit, and learning a lot right now, and hearing a lot, and receiving a lot right now, and just taking some time to really pause, just feeling kind of at a point in my life where I'm it's so funny because I'm hearing, do you know who Rob Bell is? If you don't know who Rob Bell is, former pastor of one of these big mega churches, written a ton of books. He's just brilliant. He's one of the new kind of thinkers, you would say, these days when it comes to spirituality, God, religion. He wrote a book, I just finished rereading it for the second time. How to Get From Here, something here now, or oh God, I'm screwing it all up. Send me an email if you want to know what that book is, or just go check out Rob Bell. It's a red cover on the book. And there's a lot of this stuff here that's coming up for me. I've kind of okay, so I'm feeling like I'm in this kind of really dark space these days, and not judging it, not trying to stop it. And I thought, you know what is happening in our world these days that some people are going to such a place of darkness that they can't ever get out of it or choose to move out of it and end up taking their own life. Why is it? Now, we could go down all different routes with this, right? We could talk about the increase of all these psychotropic drugs out there and how, yes, a lot of them side effects are suicidal thoughts. We could take a look and we could go, access to guns, which, whatever you believe about that, I don't have any beliefs. I don't really think that's it, because I think that people can use whatever they want to end their life. It's not just a gun. There's a lot of people recently that have actually, it's almost as hard for me to say this, but they've hung themselves. So this isn't about access to guns or not having access to guns. You could say it's a reflection of our society. We're in this dark times right now with what's happening with all of the violence and school shootings and just so much stuff that's going on. Children stripped from their parents at borders, and awful stuff that's happening in the world right now. That just feels like there's this dark veil, right? As if when you see in the kids movies or something, it's when the darkness comes and suddenly the skies go black. And, some people are really feeling that right now, and I think rightfully so. I get it. So why is it that some people allow themselves to go in a place of darkness and kind of allow themselves to feel that experience, and some are so afraid of it and suppress it and squash it? And so when those things start to come up, those dark feelings, I think, this is just my gut feeling about this, is if we don't allow ourselves to go to the depths of that fucking pit at times, that when you do finally go there, because you can only suppress shit for so long until it has to surface. It's so overwhelming. You haven't experienced it before. You can't imagine that you could actually go on living. Now, just, my thoughts on this is not to discount if you have had a loved one that's taken their life, you've had a friend, more about suicide than me. That is just my gut, my instinctual kind of feeling about this is that and this isn't just relates to suicide, as a whole, we've become a society of not feeling stuff. Just go scroll through Facebook. You want to really feel like shit a lot of the time? Go and start comparing yourself to all the fucking, everything's great in my life on Facebook. Where we don't want to show those sides because we are so afraid of being judged. We are so afraid of being seen as weak. We're so afraid to go, Jesus, if I actually show people who I am, they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to reject me. Even my own husband or wife or even my children, if they really knew the thoughts that are inside of me, they'd be out of here. So I'm just going to pretend and maybe even show up as who you truly are. But it's not even softer is the right word. It's a numbed down version. It's like the PG version of the R-rated you, right? Or it's the G version. You're giving them the Disney presentation, and really it's a drama, right? It's a drama. There's maybe some some deep stuff involved. There's sex involved. It's where it's got that rating, right? Where no. Let me just give you the G or the PG version of this. Why? Why do we do this? Again, could be all things I just mentioned, right? Judgment, blah, 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 whatever. Maybe we're so afraid that if we slip into that dark place that we'll never come out. But here's what I fully believe to be true when it comes to this conversation, sister, is that you have to allow your feelings to be I almost said to be suppressed. Woo, that was a bit of a Freudian slip. You need to allow your feelings to be expressed, not suppressed. Express those feelings. Because if we don't express those feelings, they will get enacted in other ways. They will. When I take a look at my kids, right? And it's if they're feeling not heard, or they're feeling their brother's being mean with them and stuff, they're going to react back in a way. Or if I don't allow them to feel those feelings, they're going to start to think over time, whether it's they feel sad, they feel rejected, they feel heard, they feel like it's not fair, they feel, are they blaming themselves? They, all these things, emotions I can feel, I can share that my boys have experienced. And if you're a parent, you know this too. And emotions are really big as a child. We're like, why are they so dramatic? You know what? Maybe they're just fucking feeling shit, and we're the ones that are screwed up as adults. Maybe they are allowing themselves to actually go through the motions of the feeling, as much as you think it's dramatic. And maybe we're the ones with the problems, and it's our children actually showing us the fucking way of how we need to be feeling our feelings. Dark stuff too. This isn't about only talking about the light side. That is absolutely Pandora, I think dangerous, because look what happens. Again, if you create your reality, your comparison, your litmus test of what's happening on Facebook, well, no wonder a lot of you think that somehow you're failing in life. You're failing your children. You're failing in your marriage. You're just failing. Because look at everybody else. They seem to have it all together. No, they don't actually. They really don't. And you know what? Nobody does. I've been listening to a lot of Oprah Super Soul Sunday podcasts. Oh my God. I've had a lot of you mention to me, oh, I love this. Your podcast is totally rad. But oh my God, I also love this and Oprah. I'm like, who doesn't love Oprah? Of course, right? But I'm like, more podcasts, don't have time, yada, 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 And, yeah, I'm listening to them, man. I'm consuming like all of them right now. And there is a lawyer. I'm going to get his name because I'm recording this podcast right now on my phone. So I'm pulling up Starbucks a little bit of work before I go to float this afternoon. Let me get the name of it so you can listen to this episode because it is so powerful. Bryan Stevenson, who is a lawyer who has made it his life's work to help out those that have been, they're in the justice system unjustly. Let's just put it that way, right? Majority of them are black men or children who are like on death row. And how many times that's gotten wrong and or, because of the color of the skin and the racism, that still goes on. And not just America, Canada too, North America, around the world today that we don't really want to, acknowledge, but it's absolutely there. But he talks about, he's written a book, and I forget the name of the book, but just listen to the podcast episode with Bryan Stevenson. You can get all the information or just Google him, because I'm going to actually get the book and read that. But he talks about that, we're this society where somehow we feel like people that have, like a lot of these men that are on death row, like he talks about one who like lost his mom when and actually got executed. This particular story they was telling about this man lost his mom when he was 3 years old, then had no one to really parent him, and so started experimenting with drugs at the age of 7. Tried to commit suicide several times in his life, got involved in gangs. Why am I mentioning this right now is that he talked about some of the biggest lesson that he's learned from all the men and women that he has served. Not all of them he's been able to save, but that he served, is that we are all broken. We are all broken. And do you realize that the journey in our life is to put those broken pieces back together and remember who we are again, right? Like Humpty Dumpty. Isn't that such a great, as I'm saying this right now, I'm like, man, Humpty Dumpty, I can see the bigger meaning in that, or at least I'm looking for it maybe right now, where it's like we put ourselves back together again, right? The darkness allows you to deconstruct and really take a look under a microscope as to what is working in your life and what's not working, and to feel the feelings that you are. And then to decide, am I going to stay in this place of fear? Am I going to go towards love? Two emotions we have to access. They just are shown in different ways. Fear, love. And that if we don't allow ourselves to go into the darkness, then when it does suddenly, come up as that experience, not to us, for us in our life, and we haven't experienced it before. It reminds me when I was in chiropractic college, and I had a classmate, his name is Ryan, great guy. And he was a young dude when he entered in chiropractic college. His dad was a chiropractor. He definitely came up in a family that was wealthy, and that's amazing. Remember, I used to tease him about being born with a silver spoon in his mouth. I know he didn't like that one. That was very condescending. Sorry about that, Ryan. If you listen to the podcast now, I did the best with what I knew with myself at that time, but that was not cool. But I remember when it was like our third quarter. So our chiropractic college was in quarters where I went to school. And so we had an oral exam. So you had to go into a room. There was an instructor there, and you had to perform different orthopedic neurological tests. You had to different things you had to do kind of on the spot, right? And I remember, what you're doing is you're waiting outside a classroom. And so you're kind of called, and hey, it's your turn now. You kind of know where you are in the lineup, and you're just waiting, right? And so I remember Ryan came out afterwards. We're kind of talking what did you, kind of doing the thing of well, what did you do for this one? What did you do? And did you get this question? Did you get this? And how'd you handle it? And you're kind of you're doing a debriefing after you've had an exam. And I remember Ryan was convinced that he failed it. And it was destroying him in that moment. And I remember just seeing that. Now, at that point, chiropractic college, I was definitely older than most. I was in my late 20s. Let me see, I think it was 20. I would have been 28 at that time. I remember thinking dude, what's the big deal? I failed shit, and I failed math in grade 12. What's the, and then I realized I'm hasn't experienced failure yet. This is a huge deal for him right now. Like, no wonder, right? So when we don't allow ourselves to really enter into those dark places inside of all of us, that is normal. That is a part of our journey to remember who we are and to continue to remember who that we are. It's like when you suddenly have that big thing that happens in your life and you've never experienced the darkness before. Well, I can maybe understand and have some more compassion for those that decide that opting out of this world is the only answer for them, because it's so overwhelming, because they haven't allowed themselves, potentially, again, my theory on this, they haven't allowed themselves to really feel that. So we don't have to be at the extremes of this talk about suicide to have this be some relevance to you, sister. Except from the standpoint of knowing that within that darkness, just like within the light, there's so many gifts inside of that for you. That if you stop that process, that if you suppress it, that if you don't allow yourself to truly feel it, you will not experience what you were supposed to. And you're going to be put back into that place again and again and again. You know the saying about kind of like, the lesson will be repeated to you, right? Until you kind of get it, the lesson will be repeated. And I'm not saying that if you allow yourself to really lean all the way into those dark times, that suddenly you won't have any anymore in your life. That's not true. Stuff is still going to surface, and that's okay. As much as it hurts, as much as it sucks, it is okay and normal. But I truly believe that there is no reason to be afraid of the dark. So we're going to call this episode, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Because there are gifts inside of that. There are things for you to see in this experience. And if you don't allow yourself to fully be in it, you will not receive what you're supposed to receive. And for me right now, that is my comfort. That is my solace of okay, things really, they suck right now. I can one day, it's so funny, when I was recording the podcast the previous week, which you would have gotten last week, and one is called James Brown. James Brown's Got Nothing on Me, and I was thinking of a song, I Feel Good, and then the next day was oh my God, I feel like I'm in the pit. It's this very much up-down thing, and that's okay that it's not okay. But I want you to know that if you're feeling some of this dark stuff, number one, you're not alone. Number two, there's nothing wrong with you. And number three, allow yourself the gift of experiencing this fully. Allow yourself that gift, sister. So, finishing up, make sure to subscribe to this podcast so you do not miss any episodes. I want you to make sure to subscribe on iTunes so you get this delivered right to your phone, and to leave a 5-star review so we can really help together. I'm gonna enroll you here in my mission, sister, to help more women to find the podcast. And leaving your thoughts and your words may be the determining factor in a woman saying man, maybe I'll check this out. This has really helped this woman. Maybe this could really help me too. So number two, join the sisterhood. You're not alone in this process. And so the times that you're feeling in that place of darkness is the time to reach out and not isolate yourself and feel like you're all alone, because you're not. So that's over at drkarenosborn.com/sisterhood. And number three, to make sure to get on the newsletter. That way you can get every single show notes from the episodes, which is, by the way, when I talk about things, I'll often give the resources and links. So it's really easy for you to access, like that podcast episode I just talked about. And VIP access to everything Women Want to More. Plus, I'm going to send you some incredible gifts when you do subscribe. So that's at drkarenosborn.com/action guide. So I will talk to the next episode, sister. A life of more is just one step away from you doing the fucking work every single day. I love and appreciate you.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosborn.com/newsletter.